Hey, sports fans, Coach Nick here, and welcome to the B-Ball Breakdown live show coming at you, as always, on our Monday afternoon. And as always, I'm joined by Andrew Combo Sal to discuss the latest and greatest in the NBA. Combo, talk to me, man. What is happening today?
Every time I go to a gym, somebody comes up to me and tell me how much they enjoy the B-Ball Breakdown live show with Coach Nick and Andrew Combo Salop. So we're doing good things out here.
That sounds like a great gym to go to. I haven't been to the gym in a while. I'm going to have to get
back. Gyms. It's not just one. It's gyms.
You know, wow. Gyms. Okay.
Gyms.
Gym. You mean like basketball gymnasium versus like workout gym?
Well, they're both a combination of both, or the few I've been to. But yeah, it's on the basketball court. People are definitely tuning into the show and they're enjoying it.
I hear you. Well, that's exciting. I get a lot of that in Chipotle for some reason. I'm not sure why, but Chipotle is a big B-Ball Breakdown universe.
Maybe it's the demographic of Chipotle.
I think it might be. And maybe how often I go to Chipotle, although I don't go that often these days, but I've been back there a little bit more recently.
I don't know the connection of you going to Chipotle and people knowing your work from outside of Chipotle, though, right?
Right. I mean, there has to be a demographical, overlay there that is scintillating.
Something we're not.
We got help have everybody in the chat today. Welcome all the people streaming in here as we get going on the show. Great to see everybody. Don't forget, if you want your question answered by us, and we will take the time to really do it, and we'll put you on the screen. We'll give you a lot of love if you do it through the super chat way on the YouTube side. So head over there. If you're on Twitter, like a lot of you guys are, then head over to YouTube. Watch it there. I think maybe the quality might be clearer video-wise. I don't know, but maybe. You never know.
I was thinking, Coach Nick, that we didn't talk about this pre-production, but point guards still matter, man. We're seeing it with Tyus, with Phoenix. We're also seeing it with CP3 and the Spurs, who just beat the Rockets. I mean, we're in an era where they say there's not as many point guards. There's definitely not as many pure point guards anymore, but point guard play does matter, especially for specific teams.
What's interesting about that? I was talking with somebody else about this, in the notion of like in a 5-out setting. One of the reasons why Tony Parker, for instance, never averaged 9 or 10 assists a game was because in the way that offense functioned, he'd be giving it up early. And then they'd be moving around, doing all the great movement and the Spurs stuff. And then he'd come around, and it would be more likely for a scoring opportunity when he got the ball back in that offense. And that's how it works, which, by the way, is what we do a lot now. And so in some respects, it's interesting that the guys that have to kind of bring the ball up and get the ball initiated aren't like the playmaker kind of people who get like a lot of assists generally in that kind of offense. But they have so much responsibility now because they get to decide exactly how that possession is going to unfold, right? Because they decide, like, are they going to hand off? Are they going to pass? Are they going to cut back for the ball? Like, they trigger the entire action of the possession each time down, almost like a catcher calling, the pitches. And so that is really important, even if they're not going to amass a ton of stats like that. You're right. They're still kind of controlling the game in a way that, even though the offenses have changed a lot, it's still an impactful position.
Yeah, the offense has changed a lot, primarily because of the Golden State Warriors. And I think we've talked about this before. They were part of the reason why the CP3 archetype of player doesn't even exist anymore, because Dre would initiate offense. Steph would initiate offense. Even last year, Clay was initiating offense in an underrated way.
Wiggins.
Wiggins playmaking. So on a team that really needs to fill a gap in that regard, it's still a really important position in the NBA, though.
Yeah, I mean, and you'll see LeBron do that all the time. Like, he'll bring the ball up a lot, and they have some, like, their best lineup right now. And I'm doing the video for tomorrow. I kind of wanted to wait for tonight's game, so it's still anything I come up with yesterday won't be old. Their best lineup by far is, let's see if I can do it off of memory. It's LeBron, Connect, Hayes. Oh boy, did I write it down?
Austin Reeves.
I think, is it Reeves? Let me see here. Hayes, LeBron. That's the 3-man lineup that's really devastating for them, because they have both shooting and spacing. Oh, and then Rui out there. And AD,
right? I mean, he's cooking.
No, AD the numbers are horrible for AD. I hate to say it. His on-off numbers are terrible. Now, it's a small sample size. But what we notice is that whenever the Lakers are going on their runs to end the game, like they've had, they were down big against Phoenix and they came back. And then in the other games, there's a moment where they broke out. AD is on the floor on those. And so it's a smaller sample size, which is probably why, but he really is the worst. He's got the worst on off of any of the rotation players, and it's not even close. But it's worth looking at because obviously against Sacramento, he had a layup on a roll, and then he had hit a really key three down the stretch. That was really important. So I want to make sure that's clear that, he is contributing in certain times that are important. But what they're unlocking right now with Connect as a shooter and then Hayes as the roller, and then you put Rui out there alongside of LeBron, that makes LeBron the 3. And so we're seeing times where even though Hayes is out there and is the quote-unquote 5, you see LeBron, who's got a small on him now, somebody who's like a 3, and he'll just duck in and he'll post them up, and then they can't stop that at all. So that's really kind of fascinating. How I wonder if Redick is starting to see this and starting to increase that, because Connect hasn't played enough. He needs to play. He's playing like 15 minutes a game. He needs to get into the 20s easy.
Yeah, I just had a Dalton Connect post yesterday, a throwback to when I talked about how I had no idea how he fell to 17, because he legit should have went 10, because he could help an NBA team right away. 3-level scorer, could score without the basketball. I mean, probably an above average athlete in the NBA. Like, he could get up, play above the rim. I mean, he's ready right now. And he's, we've talked about this before, Coach Nick, and I know you have your thoughts on this. I think teams are sometimes scared to draft older players, but sometimes you just got to draft good basketball players.
I hear you. Yeah, he's 23 and he played 4 years.
He's actually a JUCO kid.
Oh, he
went
JUCO kid, played 3 years at D1. And so again, that's the worst part about all this is that these are the guys that can come in and help you right away. Some of these other guys who have a higher upside, they might take them a couple of years, but and if you don't do it properly and they lose their confidence, like, forget about it anyway.
I heard Austin Rivers talking about this, and I want to hear if you agree with him. He thinks that, like, the NBA's future, not in jeopardy, but there's concerns from his perspective. And obviously this comes from a personal perspective of him, because he's kind of in prime years and a good basketball player and doesn't have a job in the NBA. But he feels like there's too many prospects in the NBA, and a lot of guys who are good basketball players in their late 20s and early 30s are getting pushed out and now have to play overseas or, take a media job. Do you see that as well? And should that cause concern for the future of the NBA in any way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Austin Reeves, no offense to him, but I think
Rivers.
I mean, Austin Rivers. Sorry, Austin Rivers. I mean, listen, I think he played his share. I think he was. Yeah, I think it was time.
No. But to his point, though, I'm asking you to his point, not even him personally.
It also could be a function of salary cap as well, where those are going to be cheaper players. And if you can get someone who's a younger prospect who has maybe a high upside, and it can give you 80% of that 28-year-old, and you can pay them half the amount, then they're going to do that. And that's what's going to happen every time. If the development is there, then I don't have as much of a problem with that, because you'll know that those guys will develop. But that's a little bit of a dicey thing sometimes, and it's concerning. But so let's get to our first super chats. We have a couple here waiting. Let's get them before they get too old in the tooth. We have Pookie. Thank you so much, Pookie. I really, really appreciate it, and it really helps us keep this show going. So thank you so much for the generous super chat. If the Knicks win a chip, will this begin a trend of superstars negotiating more cap-friendly contracts? So I suppose, remind me, is this Brunson took a little bit less money?
A little bit. He took a lot less. They're saying he
blanking on this one, but okay.
What'd you say?
I like blanking on the numbers then, because
it's like 90 or 100 mil. I mean, they could let us know in the comment section. But I mean, they're saying that he can make it up in the back end. But at the end of the day, like, you didn't take the money for these years right here, right? So well, let's start a trend. I mean, I think Jalen Brunson's situation with this team is a special situation because it's family. Like, his father's on the bench. He got his Nova friends there with him, and he's probably trying to keep this thing going. And he feels like if they inevitably win a championship, I mean, he's the king of New York, right? And then everything will come back to him anyway in terms of endorsements and the long-term contract and everything else. So he's basically betting on himself, the family situation, and the Nova Knicks in this one.
Yeah, I just get worried about that in terms of injury and
100%.
He's a smaller guy. It's I don't know if it means that he's more prone to injury, but he certainly throws his body in there a lot, all over the place. And so I would be worried about that in the back end, where he wouldn't have a career because he got hurt enough where he couldn't continue. But yeah, that's something. But I don't know if it's a trend. I think it's a personality. I think you got to have a certain kind of personality to be willing to do that. And I know, like, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like Tim Duncan might have done that at some point with the Spurs. I know that Kobe did not do that with the Lakers, and I don't think there's a right or wrong either on that. But I think because it seems to me that it might be like more personality related, that it's not going to be a trend across the board where we're going to see that. I think it's going to be case to case, and depending on who that person is as a player, as a person, like if I was playing and I was in New York, whatever, and I'm going to make $100 million a year. Now, don't forget, half of that is the taxes, 10%, whatever, is the manager and to your agent. You don't walk away with $100 million.
Yeah, but still, half of his current salary still goes to taxes, right? I mean,
right. Just the point being, whatever your salary is when you're making, it's not $100 million when you see that contract. It's less than half of that.
Right. Now, it's a lot of money. Yeah.
But it's a ton of money you're going to you want to be able to last you and your family and in generations after that. So that's important. So, and by the way, I would hope that, like, even if you had a non-aggressive money manager, once you got into the 10s and 20 millions, you should be able to sort of diversify that into a thing that would last you the rest of your life and probably your kids' lives. Should be that way. But things are crazy these days with all sorts of speculation. But nonetheless, I certainly was nice of Brunson to do that. I don't know if they have a shot at the title. Do you?
They have a shot.
I mean, first of all, we got to see what happens when Paul George is back and then they're all back and healthy. Then we got to see when Mitchell Robinson's back to see what that looks like.
They could beat the Sixers. Just the thing is, can they beat the Celtics? Or can anybody beat the Celtics?
We got to see some more data before I can even get them in that discussion right now. Right now, it doesn't look great. I don't like the offense. Don't like how it's flowing.
I mean, it's been two blowouts. One win, one loss.
Yeah, but even still, wait, what was the win?
Indiana Pacers blew them out at home.
Yeah, Indiana, they got beat again. Indiana, I'll have to do a dive on them to figure out what's happening there because they got Mathurin back, and I know he's scoring one of those games, so it'd be worth looking at them.
He looked sharp.
Give him another super chat to get to, but thank you, Pookie. Joe B. Always nice to see you, Joe B. Thank you so much. They ask, think Giannis sits out tonight? It's the back end of the back-to-back. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think so after a loss.
That's another thing too. It's interesting. I mean, it's probably a bit of a 50-50 thing though. And let's talk about the Bucks because I went through that game and they were playing on the road. It was not a back-to-back last night against the Nets, and they got beat. And the Nets, are not supposed to be very good. They have a rookie head coach. They've kind of got, they lost Bridges. Kind of have a cobbled together, interesting, weird team with Cam Thomas and Schroeder and
Simmons.
And what?
Ben Simmons.
And Ben Simmons is kind of weird. He deserves a video. Have you been watching his play at all?
He's doing some good stuff on both sides of the floor. I know the Nets commentators went at him for not shooting a layup. I think it was last night. Yeah,
and it was almost an important part of the game. They were already after that big one. There's other moments too where he just doesn't want to. He tried shooting a right-handed layup that should have been a lefty, which he's done his whole career and blew it. But you're right. He does create a lot of pressure on the defense. When he comes down and gets into the middle, he's going to pass. He's not going to shoot. It's a weird thing now. But it does open up things for guys like Cam Thomas. So, they have something. But, again, the Bucks I don't think they should lose that game and not like the way they did.
Ben Simmons has had some good minutes already this year. I mean, you're right. He just has to look at the rim when he's bringing the ball down the court. But he's impact on both sides, and he looks pretty healthy. He's moving well. Yeah. And he had a couple of great defensive plays as well, which he can do. So that's important. And then on the flip side, because what happened was it was a kind of a close back and forth game the whole game. The Bucks offense does not this might be a Doc Rivers special where they just, from what I've heard from Philly and then what I'm seeing now is there's just not a lot of coaching going on. Like it's a lot of sort of free form and not a lot of I don't see plays. Now, I'm doing a video. I'm asking a bunch of clips. It's going to be a really cool video focusing on the handoff. And don't forget, the reason why you want to watch these live shows is because you get glimpses into the videos I'm going to do ahead of time. And so we're doing handoffs. And when you watch all the people who have made handoffs out of that action and you get through it, you see such beautiful offense, right? It's like way back from the beginning of the game, the original Celtics in the 20s doing this stuff, right? And you don't see that much with the Bucks. You don't see the kind of movement and cutting and passing that you would like to see that a lot of the other teams are doing. And as a result, the shot quality for the Bucks is really low. And they scored 104 points last night. Is that right? 102 points last night. Against the Nets, who I don't
really feel are a powerhouse on the defensive end.
Yeah, Cam Thomas has a chance for Cam Thomas has a chance to win the scoring title this year.
Why do you say that?
Because he's in a perfect situation to win the scoring title. They're going to feature him. They need to put butts in the seats, so they need something box office going on. And Cam Thomas scoring isn't enough for them to win, so they could tank and have a Cam Thomas season at the same time.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any other player in the league with that unique of a situation.
Absolutely. And he's playing a career high in minutes, and he's averaging almost 31 a game. And the good thing is that it's a pretty good efficiency, and he's using the handoffs, believe it or not. He's got a floater game that's really, really good coming around those handoffs into the lane. So that's really great to see versus like some of the Dame shots are really difficult. And if we look at that box score from last night, let me just quickly call that up. Watch, James shot really well, but I don't think he did. Yeah, he was 5 for 13 and then 1 for 7 from 3. And they were very tough shots he had to take. So the offense is functioning really well. Giannis ended up being, he 7 for 11 from the field, and then he actually hit 8 for 11 from the free throw line. I was going to start to comment on that, but he had 4 turnovers, and they weren't good turnovers at all. So even though he shot really well, he doesn't look as impactful at all on the floor, and that's a real problem. When you have, if Dame is going to struggle from the field, and then Giannis is not going to have the impact that they want him to have offensively. It's a really not good recipe. I don't know how they fix that. Am I forgetting somebody on the Bucks who's injured, who's going to come back? I guess it's Middleton. Yes. So that could change things, I think, right?
Healthy Middleton could change things, but in the playoffs, I think he looked solid last year. But yeah, I mean, if he looks like the Middleton when they won a championship, sure, he'll help things.
Yeah. You know what might help the most is it puts maybe Gary Trent Jr. to the bench. I really like Gary Trent Jr. He's done well in the stints that I've seen him in various places around the NBA. But I do feel like as a starter, it probably isn't his best role anyway. So you can get him coming off the bench. That'll give them something with him and Portis. So that actually works for me. But that's a big hinge, and they should be getting better play even still. And so I don't know what's going on with the coaching. I wonder how long that's going to last, if that's going to be a thing, because at some point they might realize that, the same issues that have plagued Doc throughout his career are still there. It would just be nice to see more, I don't want to say control by the coach over the offense, but I'd like to see more recognizable action and player movement. And that'll make it easier for Giannis and make it easier for Dame. Giannis should be rolling, getting lobs, he should be able to pop out, or hand off and roll, that kind of stuff. It's it's just so there's not a lot of movement. It's just straight pick and roll from the top. It's easy for defenses to handle that.
Yeah, I mean, Giannis has always been an interesting player, a team player, but when you watch him move around the basketball court and score in transition, it still looks like Giannis. So I agree with you. You have to maximize what he does, and it doesn't seem like the Bucks are doing that. I mean, when he gets out of transition, he's still an absolute problem. He's like Inspector Gadget.
Yeah, right. Or from or Michael Jordan in
Space Jam. Yeah, exactly.
That movie that he was in, Space Jam. Thank you. I mean, listen, if you look at the numbers after 3 games, it's it's dominant. It's 28 points. It's 12 rebounds, 6 assists. That's all there. But looking at last night individually, it was just a really they need more from that. And I don't know, and that's against the Nets, whereas they're going to go up against a couple other teams that have something that can not match, but certainly approximate his physical domination to try and guard him. So I don't know. I wonder now. The mid range actually looks a lot better too. I know that he's working with somebody else now to help him with his shot and his game. And the mid range tweaks that I've seen have been really good. There's he actually is hanging in the air on his pull ups, and which is kind of what I encourage anyway for the 15-footer. And that seems to look like he's got that out. Now, the bigger problem I have is with his free throw, which has got a really kind of a hitchy thing in there, and he's at 58%. I think that's including the good shooting last night from the free throw line. So before that, it was even lower. And he's got this weird thing where he's pausing and stopping in the middle, and then it kind of gets out there. I worry about that because the dude's going to average, 12 free throws a game this year.
Yeah, that's a huge issue. He definitely needs to make free throws. I remember he always had issues at the line, right? But then I think that 50-point game that he, I think he went to McDonald's and ordered a 50-piece after they won the championship. He was knocking down his free throws that game, from what I remember.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
he could
now,
do it when it matters. Like Shaq used to say, like, oh, he can't shoot free throws, but he makes them when it matters.
Well, you can kind of probably track the evolution of how they ruined his jump shot from the beginning of his career till now. His free throws, at the second year was 74%, then 72, then 77, then 76, 73. And then also in 1920, it like dropped off, and he hasn't gotten above 70 just once.
When you say they ruined his jump shot, at the end of the day, isn't it always the player's responsibility? Like you're the leader of your own game, right? So if somebody else causes an issue with your jump shot, at the end of the day, it comes down on you, and you have to search out the right information. And with him, he could choose who he wants to work with or not.
Yeah.
Like I think like it always comes down to you at the end of the day, because if something's not working, what do you think though? What do you think about that?
Sorry, Josh. No, I mean, here's what I'll say about this is that from what I can gather from being around Giannis and seeing Giannis, he is probably one of the best teammates you're ever going to have. B, I think he's a pleaser. I think he wants to do whatever the coach tells him to do. And he'll do it as eagerly as possible, which is what you love. The coach would love to have that on a team. Now, I just did a video, by the way, talking about how he uses his elbows on the high rip throughs, and the elbows are at face level, and he's got to stop that. But I've called out everybody for years on Twitter for doing this. And it came up because Kelly Oubre was doing the funny elbow dance, and I wanted to explain, okay, what was he doing? What was he trying to the point? And did you see that? No,
I did see. Was that Kelly Oubre with the weird hitch in his shot, though? I saw that video.
I haven't seen Kelly Oubre with the hitch, but I'll check it. I might have actually bookmarked something recently about that. I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, so he was trying to tell the referee he just uses his elbows to clear out, and he kind of does, and so a lot of players do. But at his speed and his size, if you get clocked in the face, because he's swinging his elbows, there's easier and other moves and other ways to do that, so your elbows are not leading into the face of the defender, and he needs to be aware of that. And I will always advocate for not doing dangerous moves like that. And it's like the response from the Giannis fans. There are a few, but they're vocal on Twitter at least. Is ridiculous. Honestly, it's like you're advocating for people. No one's ever gotten hurt from that. I'm like, I'm not going to wait around to find out. Those are serious blows they're taking to the face. So at any rate, the point being is, how do we get to that? We were talking about Giannis and his jump shot and who is responsible for it. So I think he's a pleaser. I think he'll do whatever the coach wants him to do. And so whatever coach that was started saying, we're going to fix this, we're going to make this better, whatever. And that's what happened to it. Someone did that to him, and he was eagerly willing to do whatever they asked him to do. And here we are. So I don't know. I just feel like whatever the suboptimal techniques were, we have the results. We see what happened to it. And I don't know if he's going to ever fix it.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I also think like any player, and especially great players, like you look at Michael Jordan or Kobe or LeBron James. I mean, at the end of the day, they're figuring out how to get better. Like, yes, like training matters, but it's your responsibility to figure things out at the end of the day and work with the people you want to work with who have the most benefit for you.
Yeah, well, that's the most benefit. You got to be sure that they're doing that. And as soon as it all started happening, I would have been like, "Stop this!
Right.
Go!" And
right. Yeah.
Somebody needed to figure that out. It's really too bad because there is a skill deficit with Giannis, and he doesn't need it because he is so physically dominant. He just goes through everybody and he just goes whatever. And at some point, he won't have that dominance physically, and then we'll see what we got. And Russ is similar to that vein as well. Even though when at the height of his physical ability, I was still frustrated by the lack of certain skills that he had, and we can talk about that in a second because I have watched a little bit of the Denver stuff and how he's fitting in. But we have some more super chats to get to. So, and hey, Martin, I see you out there. Say hello. But we have Braun, Godfather of the Breakdown. Great to see you. Thank you so much for being there every show for us. He'd love a breakdown on how OKC is defending at an elite level. That's so weird. Did you hack my computer? It's on my list right now. I just put it on before the start of the show. Anyway, he wants to see how OKC is defending at an elite level without any bigs besides Chet, holding teams to below 40% with 67 stocks so far. I mean, they're long. And they're hungry. You know what I mean? That's what I really get when I watch them. They're hungry. I would be scared to play them because they're so it's probably like the original OKC teams. When you went up against KD and like Russ was out there and they had all the other defenders and Steven Adams, that was intimidating. And that's how it feels now. Doesn't that feel like that to you?
100%. I mean, I think that's why everyone had them winning the regular season standings in the West, because everybody knew they'd be hungry. There'd probably be less load management. And Chet has, I mean, SGA is SGA, but Chet has improved even more. Like, I always felt like he was a great fit for the NBA, but man, he's rebounding the ball better. He looks a little stronger. He's attacking the rim better. He just looks even more confident. And man, he's been huge for them on both sides of the floor.
Oh, I know. And, Caruso has been doing Caruso things, and the numbers might
Yeah.
not even be that gaudy, but like he just fits in. He fits in anywhere. Great pickup. And especially when you're talking about defense. He had a sequence when he got like a deflection and then sprinted right back, and then a back tap off of the other player out of bounds for a turnover, which was just next level, even for him. And guess what? They're going to get better, Combo. Why are they going to get better?
Hartenstein
comes back. And he is going to start, I think, right? And so it's like he changes the dynamic because you get playmaking from that position. It should make SGA better. He should get easier shots out of all of that. So they are scary, and I think I'm gonna have to pick them as my title favorites right now. What do you think?
Ooh, over Boston?
I think so. I really just feel like, yeah.
I'm not mad at it.
Let's call that the finals at least.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be Celtics OKC, unless the Lakers could surprise everybody.
Oh, let's stay on target. Let's not we can get the Lakers in a minute, but okay. I don't see the Lakers making the finals, but we'll see. But I just don't know if anyone's gonna be able to overcome OKC. They're too deep, they're too talented, they're too imposing. And if SGA doesn't win the MVP this year, I'd be a little bit surprised as well. So there's my MVP pick, which is probably the same from last week, right? I don't even remember.
I think so. Yeah. So, I had Anthony Edwards, but I think he might have SGA. It's a great pick. I mean, he's legit. I mean, he's probably he has, like I said, Cam Thomas could win the points per game. He could win the points per game, and he's a great two-way player, and he's going to lead the best team in the West. So, I mean, yeah, for sure. Yeah. He has a great chance.
Let's get to our next super chat because some of these are getting a little too old. Alan, thank you so much, Alan Tran. Great to see you out there. So generous. I really appreciate it. All of you guys really appreciate this. He says, I think the Bucks and Nuggets desperately need some roster changes, especially the Nuggets. Murray and MPJ don't look great as options 2 and 3 right now. You know what? I think that they would be better if they can get one more like bona fide NBA player on that roster. Now let's talk about Russ for a second, because I was watching some of that, and here's what's interesting. The way he functions in their offense right now dictates that he will have to shoot threes. The threes are kind of the way they're, he has to spot up. He's going to get the ball there, the clock's, whatever it is. Like there's a threes he's going to need to take to the tune of 4.5, 5 a game, which is more than he's taken in a while. The problem with that is that he could very well go down as having the worst three-point percentage of any pro at that volume ever, because he hangs in the air. He's got a slightly weird arm elevation in the arm, because the release looks okay to me, but he tends to hang, and then he like the arm, the movement. I don't know if you've responded to this or seen this. Something about the movement of his shoulder up, the angle ends up being too high for me, and I feel like that's just going to cause him to be off short and long way too often, and I'm concerned. Are you?
Yeah, I'm definitely concerned. I remember watching them in Abu Dhabi, and he hit a few, but he was wide open, and that's going to be the case for the rest of this season. Yeah. They just lost to the Clippers, and Jokic had a 40-point game, and he hit like 7 threes. So that's not a good sign when Jokic is playing that well and they're still losing. And Jokic is a guy who processes the game at such a high level, and he's going to start to realize that, they might be at a deficit with this roster.
Here's the thing. It's not like it's just the 3-point percentage for Russ. And I had seen this because, listen, Russ has struggled at the rim since I did a video in his prime. He's never been like an elite finisher at the rim, which is the thing. And that was surprising to people. But when you really dug in, and I remember people wanted to yell at me and argue me that I'm some sort of a hater, but it was like I gave them clear, actionable A, numbers, and then B, methods, like why he'd be missing these easy shots at the basket, independent of the amazing dunks that he would do and the drives that were really amazing, and highlights. When you put those away, he was struggling. And now, because he's diminished athletically, those finishes are even harder. And it's kind of like, I don't know if it's embarrassing is the word, but it's rough. And yeah, I think that Jokic and those guys are definitely accustomed to a much higher level of play. And I don't know how long that's going to last. They've already got him on a 22-minute restriction, it looks like. Let's see here. 20 minutes, and that's what they had him with the Clippers, right? You couldn't play him more than that because he'd hurt your team too much. So I'm worried about that, and I feel like that might be they're going to have to make a change there. I don't think that Russ has any value necessarily on the trade market, so I don't know exactly how that's going to work and how they could bring anybody else in. But I think they need to bring at least another player in.
How would you place Russ on the court if you were coaching the team? Like, where would you put him? Like, what actions would you run with him? Because that is who they have right now, and it's only 2 or 3 games in.
I mean, that's a good question because I'd say, well, I don't know how much I'd play him, but the politics being what they are, you have to, is whatever. Okay. I mean, let's see where he has the moments where I still saw him able to draw some defense and kick. So, you could use him on that. You could probably use him as some version of a ball screener and short roller, I think
like Bruce Brown.
Yeah, I mean, you're putting a lot of decision making on him in the middle of the floor in a quick way.
He's a good passer though.
Yeah, he's not always been accurate with it, but okay. He's got a weird thing where he throws. You ever notice this when he passes his arms cross on the release?
Okay,
it's an interesting thing. That doesn't mean anything necessarily, other than it's unique. And I just always find I don't know why he developed that, but yeah, so probably getting him in the corner, getting him sprinting into a handoff, and then turning into the lane. Those are probably the things. And that offense has that, all over the place. So they could definitely do that. I don't know if what else I would do with him because pick and roll, they could just go underneath every time and just negate that action. So it's tough. And then he gets stuck down amongst the trees and surrounded. And there was a bad play where he got blocked, and it was just a bad decision. And you have to wonder, eventually Jokic is going to stop being patient with that. Now, on the flip side, I do like Brown. I like how Brown has fit in very well. I think he's done a terrific job assuming the role as a starter now and really gives him a great fifth option out there filling in those holes. I think the MPJ, I'm sure he'll kind of get back into shape. I think the Jamal Murray thing is maybe more of an issue, more of a question because he just looks lethargic, doesn't he?
Well, he always starts the season out slow. So he always gets better in the playoffs. So We'll see what happens. It is kind of a large sample size with the Olympics and what we've seen so far, and even a little bit of the end of last season. But yeah, I think he usually starts the season slow, and he's a lot better in the playoffs. But they have to position themselves to get into the playoffs with some regular season wins here. So we'll see what happens.
Another really important thing. So yeah. Now on the other side, when Alan's bringing up the Bucks. I mean, the roster change that's going to happen will be Middleton at least getting back on the floor and then bumping everybody else into different roles. That should help as long as Middleton can stay healthy, which doesn't seem like a thing you should rely on. And so other than that, I don't know what else they have in the margins they could use as assets to trade who they get.
How about just finding more stuff to run with Dame and Giannis, two of the most dangerous players in the NBA,
Oh, I know. There's so much clever action that we're seeing with the handoffs across the top and back screens into coming off of for open stuff that they could be doing. And it's funny because we're seeing Terry Stotts in Golden State running all of his flare actions, just like we saw when Dame was there in Portland, and when they were so dangerous with him and CJ. So, I don't know what Dame must be thinking because he's like, gosh, it would be great to get back to doing that, getting a lot more spacing, get more player movement, got a lot more sprinting into catches. That's another important thing you need to have on every offense is the ability to sprint, 15, 18 feet and then catch and attack. This is much more of a slower, methodical, offense where they have Brook Lopez out there who's slow and isn't gonna sort of be part of that. And even though he can still shoot a little bit, I don't know the kind of spacing they're getting from him and certainly the speed of the ball. So there maybe Brook Lopez has some value that they could trade and get somebody else from there. Like if I'm thinking out loud here, there might be something there.
I remember I watched the first game versus the Sixers, and what I noticed about Dame, he was moving really well, even better than last season. Yeah. So that's something that's good for the Bucks within all this chaos. So hopefully they can figure something out on that side, maybe feature Dame more. I don't know. They have to definitely do something on the offensive end, but I did like how Dame looked in that first game versus the Sixers. Yeah, I think he dropped 30 and he looked like Dame.
Yeah, no, and I'm still seeing that's all really good. It's just they got to be able to maximize that and get him easier shots. I think that's a really important thing because Dame hasn't always been efficient because of the difficulty of the shots. And if they could get him to play a little bit more off of their offense, to generate those shots, I think the percentage would go up and they'd be better. So they it's not quite early enough to start panicking, but there is something wrong with the Bucks, and that was a bad loss against the Nets, and they got to start getting this ship turned around. But I don't know how much confidence I have with the leadership. All right, let's get to our next one. Scoldylocks. Thank you so much, Scoldylocks. Really appreciate it. Great name. What is your favorite set or concept that JJ Redick has added to the Lakers offense and defense? Okay, great. So let's talk defense for a second. I caught this the other night, and I kind of want to dive down and find more of this. They started out in man-to-man, or they started out in a man-to-man and then flipped it to a zone after the first pass. Love that. Like, it's so cool when you can kind of futz with the offense by like switching up your man and zone in the middle of the possession. So that's really exciting. I mean, there's no question that I don't want to say it's the IQ, but it's like there's a whole level that they're playing on right now that's different than they were the last couple of years.
I think part of it is JJ's impact. I also think part of it, the Olympic bump, is real. Like, LeBron always stays in shape in the offseason, but from what I hear, AD, he's like a hooper. Like, he's not working super hard in the offseason. So for him to have another season in the offseason with the Olympics and adding on that chemistry with all those other players, learning from other players, playing with LeBron, I think that's been a great benefit to not only him, but look at Jason Tatum on the East Coast. I think like the Olympic bump has been real for him, and it's helped the Lakers a lot.
We can check elbow touches, right? Let me see. I feel like he's getting a lot more high post action now than last couple of years. Let me see. Is it here? Elbow touches. Yeah. So let's just do elbow touches right now, and let's do it for the Lakers because that's part of what I'm noticing. He's killing it. He's killing everybody right now with his numbers. And he's actually doing some nice passing too. So that's the other thing a bit. I'm sure we'll find under Darvin Ham like motion and cutting and back doors and stuff like that. But it definitely feels like there's a little bit more in the volume category on that end. And so my favorite offensive set I think right now has to be they feed the low post. Dalton Connect back screens the guy who passed to the post and then comes around for a handoff from the post player. Because remember, handoffs, what we see a lot of are like toward the corner and they're coming up. So when you're catching it, you're going away from the basket and got to turn the corner. I like that, but it's a little bit harder to get back toward the basket and threaten the defense. But when you are in the low post and you kind of dribble out away from the hoop and then hand it off to the guy, he is going downhill on that catch. And that's a really tough thing to defend. And what they do with Connect, though, it's always on the same side of the floor. So that Connect is coming around that handoff from the post over his right shoulder to shoot that three. It's not an easy shot. It's a shot for pros, obviously. But because he's going to his left, it's a much easier shot. They're going to run it that way every time. So defenses should be more wise to that. In fact, Herter was on top of it. He totally knew it, was right there, had a pretty good contest. Didn't even matter. Just buried that shot. So I really like that from them as well. And there's also some nice two-man game stuff they're doing in the corners where they either do get action into handoffs, into ball screens, into backdoor cuts. A lot of great stuff there. And so I think that, JJ is a bit of what we call him, a sicko, right? Basketball sicko. So he, they caught him. He was at the car wash on his laptop going through clips, he's constantly doing that. And I think it can kind of rub off on you, the excitement of like, hey, let's really run this. Let's run the cool offense where we get movement and side to side, and they'll be able to explain why it works really well. We're not seeing what we saw in the preseason, by the way, which I thought was really, really enamored with as soon as LeBron and AD got back. But I think maybe the point is when you have LeBron and AD, you don't need to run that much movement and whatever because they're that good.
Yeah, keep it simple. I like the idea of handoffs because it creates opportunities for players to play downhill, as you said. And I think that's an underrated skill set that needs to be worked on from an individual perspective as well. I noticed when I was playing overseas that more guards did that, and it allowed like slower guards who just had the knack to catch on the downhill, even when it wasn't handoffs, right? Just on the catch, it allowed them to get in a lane in the way that a lot of players in the States, they kind of catch it and stop and then maybe want to get it to a jab step or in their bag. But I think if we see more offense with continuity and players catching on the downhill and getting to the basket, it could cause huge issues for the defense. It's just a lot harder to guard.
Oh, yeah. And even just catching and then shooting off a handoff when they go under is another great way to get good at that and make that even work better. We also need to start seeing guards handing off to bigs I think that'll screw up a lot of defenses who the bigs are not. They're going to want to switch it, and they're going to make an instant mismatch. So that's a really good way to do that. So I don't always see it that way. It's probably more often the big to the guard. But in this day and age, imagine me dribbling and handing off to Jokic. It's like, forget it.
Yeah, and you'll be open from it, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The hander offer gets to be open a lot too, even if it's like on a secondary action where you hand it off, they take a couple dribbles, and they kick, then you're open. It's like you're forcing your defender to have to help and be in a situation where they have to be worried about the other guys, and then you get openings. So it's just a great way to play. I'm actually working with the high school team right now in LA, and I'm teaching them the Lakers 5-out offense. It's basically what we're running. And, when it gets going and they kind of get in the right positions to begin with, it really looks like Princeton. It looks like they've been working on it for years, you know what I mean? And it's the high school level. And it's all rooted in either the handoff and the get action, which is sort of what we're seeing so much more of. And it's like what the original offense was in basketball itself in the 20s and 30s was all about these actions. We kind of got away from it at some point for a big stretch. But I think Tex Winter would be really happy to see that all these triangle concepts are coming back and everybody across the board is running them. Let me ask you this, though. Because everyone's running Zoom action and everyone's running the same, very similar stuff, is that going to make the public lose interest because it kind of seems like homogenous now and everyone's running the same exact stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a complaint about the modern NBA. It's always been a copycat league, but now it's more of a copycat league when it comes to offense than ever before. Like, what's the one team that really runs sets that are so unique from the rest of the league at this point? I don't think there's anybody.
Yeah, the Warriors will still have some. The Lakers are now doing some. The Kings. So there are a few teams that are taking what we would normally assume, oh, that's a zoom easy, a handoff into whatever, or a pin down in the handoff. And all of a sudden they throw another interesting wrinkle or a cut out of that. And then they get a bucket out of that because the defense got used to thinking that they know that's going to happen. So there's an opportunity there, I think, as well to exploit that. And I know that Coach Kerr is doing that. Mike Brown for sure. So, I got to get around the league and see everybody's offenses. And I hope I can get that done in the next week or two. It's hard. And then we'll figure out who else is in that. But you certainly can see sometimes. I was watching, I think it was the Clippers and whoever the Clippers were playing. And there just seemed to be it's the same back and forth. And then when they start missing and then it's back.
And was it Denver? Was it Denver?
Crap, Enola. I can look real quick.
Norman, I think Norman Powell had a 22 point half first. Yeah.
He's taking advantage of Kawhi not being there and Harden, Harden's been pretty good.
I mean, Harden's going to be good in this situation. This is where Harden thrives, being a guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't come through at the end of the last game. They lost to Phoenix. I think that's the game I was watching. But it was Golden State. So there's a moment even against Golden State where it was going back and forth 4 or 5 possessions in a row with no scoring and kind of bad threes. And that's sort of, I think, what also grates on me is this is where I get worried is with the longer we have those stretches, and that's with a team like the Warriors too, who runs really great offense. But when the stretches when it's back and forth, 4 or 5 threes in a row missed, and they're not great threes, you start to tune out and turn off, and that's going to be a real problem for the NBA unless they can fix that. Let's get to Martin Jose. Thank you so much, Martin. Great to see you. And so much of it thank you for the generous super chat. And Martin says, thoughts on Fever firing Coach Christie sides? I think it was a little too early since they started off slow, but finished strong by the end of the season. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting to see it. I was kind of reaching out to some WNBA folks to find out a little bit more information about that. But I will say this, and they had a big improvement. They won 20 games. They'd only won whatever. I guess they tanked, for Caitlin Clark the year before. So there was already going to be improvement. So I suppose that's what they had built in for their expectations. But I have to imagine, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, Combo, if they had gone to Caitlin Clark and said, we want to fire Coach Sides, and she said, no, I really like her, I don't think they would have fired her then, right?
Oh, yeah. They always go to the star player, especially when your star is the most international star in the WNBA. So, yeah, I'm sure they passed that by her. They want to keep her happy. Right.
And she certainly wasn't vociferous in her defending of that. And I don't blame her. I watched a lot of that stuff. Well, here's the thing. I watched some of those games, and there were interesting sets they did run to spring her loose. And so I wouldn't say that they were completely handcuffing her. I think there might have been some sort of situational stuff that they would screw up in terms of like fouls to give or up by 3. I think if my memory serves me correctly. And that's really where you got to find a coach that can get you to the next level, right? So I think she was good for what they needed there to this past year, get them on that road, and then they realized that they needed to have somebody who's just better. And interestingly enough, it was like with the Sparks, and they fired their head coach. Even though they were, I think they were probably not. They wanted to get a high draft pick for Paige Beckers, so they weren't really trying to win. But even still, when you do like your exit interviews and you ask the players how they feel, if there's enough ill will toward the coach, whatever that situation is, management's going to look at that pretty sternly.
Yeah. Getting fired is not good, but it's part of being a pro coach, and most pro coaches don't have a whole career without ever getting fired, right? It's very rare. Right. So it's part of the business.
Coached until you've been fired, I suppose, in the pro level, and that's she just add her to that list, unfortunately. But hopefully they find someone who can connect with them better and just probably give them a little bit more of a basis of decision making stuff during the games and adjustments that they could see how play out in the box score and then the win loss column.
So yeah. So what's interesting about Caitlin Clark is I was asking somebody that trains WNBA players, and he was telling me, I know there were some reports that she was going to play, but he was telling me at the moment that she's not even going to play in the offseason. Like, right. Do you know how long of an offseason that is? That's kind of crazy, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously she makes a ton of money because she would be able to make a lot more money than she does in WNBA.
100%.
And so it's not that. And you know what? I have to imagine the burden of being that in her position. It could be so taxing that she needed it. Now that said, is it going to be a wise decision? And is she going to be really rusty by the time they start over again? Probably.
It can't be great for her development. I'll tell you that. Like at the end of the day, if Caitlin Clark's not playing basketball for what is it? It's like a 7 months overseas season, 8 months.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Angel Reese did the same thing, I believe. So, she doesn't want to get hurt, I suppose, and risk that. But yeah, it will.
I wonder if we'll get to a place where the WNBA season will just be longer and coincide with overseas basketball and the NBA.
That the question that then is posed is whether or not they're really losing all the money that the reporting is coming out saying that they're losing. A lot of times owners will cry poor, and it turns out they're not losing all that money. But I sense that a lot of times when they're doing these arena deals, and the WNBA teams have to play in a decent arena. I'm sensing that those deals are really, really brutal in terms of how much they end up having to pay, and for sure, like the Fever, I sure don't have a problem because they're selling out arenas. And whenever Caitlin Clark played somewhere, they were selling those out. But if you go to like other WNBA teams and you see it's not sold out, and that like they're probably having a really rough deal that they pay a lot of money to be in that arena, and the gate isn't going to give them enough money. I don't know. Now, would it be a big deal if the NBA subsidized if they needed to and help them cover all that and just continue to build this until they got there? Yeah, probably not a huge deal. The losses are not going to be anything to the NBA in theory. So we'll see how that plays out because, again, the NBA, it must be a little bit concerned about their revenue too. I think the new TV deal is really good, but doesn't it, if I'm not mistaken, like they're a little bit concerned about ratings these days.
A little bit concerned. They're a lot concerned. But why is the ratings reports always so varying? Like I hear reports that the NBA is up. I hear reports that the NBA is down. It's never consistent. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And that should be that's just math. That's, now we can trace streams. You can know exactly what it was. Back in the day, you might not remember, they had the Nielsen ratings where there's a box on your old TV set. And they would put that in, not a lot of homes, but somehow that indicated across the board. It's kind of like polling now in politics, right? They give us a national poll. Well, how many did you poll? 1,000 people. Okay. But somehow 1,000 people is going to represent, the whole United States, right? But there is a science to that. And I think that there is accuracy. There might not be accuracy anymore in this day and age in the way this is working and the way people are willing to admit or not admit who they want to vote for. So it might end up being not as accurate as it, which is why we've seen in the past a little bit of inaccuracy stuff where it seems like someone's way up and then they barely win or vice versa. So, I think that's all coming to play, and eventually they'll probably get more accuracy as we develop. Everyone gets more tethered to the internet, I suppose.
Yeah, there is ways to predict better now more than ever, right? With AI, and then Vegas usually gets it pretty close on sports, like on their over unders.
Yeah. And you know what? Speaking of this, let's do this. Someone, and I noticed this in the chat. We'll stop this for a second because it's a week from the elections. But Bud Stop says, "Hey, Coach Nick, the Biden administration has been great, huh? I remember you said you'd much rather have him than Trump. Sheesh, horrible call. And Harris is even worse somehow. LOL." This is what we have to deal with, and it's also because the information, the internet kind of can suck a lot of the time. Wouldn't you say, Combo? The internet can be a real disaster area for people.
I think the internet could be a disaster area because people are drawn to negativity.
That, but they're also drawn to like misinformation, right? And they can be, drawn to just straight out lies. And so, whatever normal metric that a conservative would ever use to ascertain how the country is going, all those metrics are great. Unemployment, the economy, crime, all those things are going in really great directions that you would say would be great. And then you have somebody who's going to lie about all that. And because the people are already sort of angry and just sort of need someone to be angry with them, they'll be like, yeah, that's right. And then that can't be right. And then meanwhile, the evidence doesn't matter anymore. And that's where we are now. So, if you want to see, especially after, in your hometown in Madison Square Garden, are you aware of what the event that they had yesterday?
Tell me more.
So Donald Trump had a big event, and they brought in all these people. And I got to tell you, they had a comedian that destroyed. It made like the worst racist attempt at a joke about Puerto Ricans. It went downhill from there, and it was a hate fest hootenanny. It was really ugly. And certainly not the kind of thing you'd want. I mean, I guess people don't care to have someone in the White House who has good character. Like we've kind of gotten past that. They don't care what the character of the person is. I kind of still do. Decision making is influenced by your character, and I think that that's important. But do you sense that at all? That people at this point they don't care whether Trump is a good person or a bad person. Hint: he's a horrible person. That doesn't matter to them. Does that feel right? Does that ring true to you?
I think hate is never the answer, Coach Nick.
That's true. Okay. So you have an entire campaign rooted in that, and stoking that.
Yeah. I don't pay much attention to politics, but no campaign rooted in hate, I think, is good. I think we should all try and be better.
Yeah. Right. And then, so meanwhile, you keep seeing, Trump get worse and worse. And by the way, this is, if you listen to my political podcast, you hear me say this all the time. They've been getting worse and worse with this rhetoric about the enemy within. They're calling people who are in our government the enemy. And they're doing that because the polls are getting tighter and tighter. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but, she was up 3.5, 4 points, and then it's been slowly shrinking the crazier and crazier Trump gets with these events and what he's saying. So he's obviously encouraged to continue to say these things. So if I was a cynical political advisor, I'd be like, sorry, yeah, you keep doing it and keep going crazier and crazier and keep saying the most ridiculous, conspiracy theories, keep doubling down on the fact that, 2020 election was stolen when it wasn't, all those things are working for you. And that's the problem. I think the internet has a lot to do with this. And it's gotten me certainly my hands ringing every day. And it's a lot of anxiety as we move into this, even though in theory, living in California, perhaps my life won't change day to day. In this bubble where we have, a more, a local government that is, I mean, I can't say it functions that well, but it certainly has, people that are earnest in their desire to try and help people at least. And so versus what you're going to see here. I think the other thing is people probably don't care whether Trump just rapes the country for his own personal benefit, which he did for his 4 years in office. I suppose they might even think that that's cool. Like, that's great. Like, get yours. You know what I mean?
I don't know much about this, Coach Nick, to be honest.
Good for you. Yeah, anyway, so I figured we'll throw it out there as we get close, since we're so close to the election right now.
So how does your political podcast work? Is it like live shows like this, or is it all audio?
Well, we have our every Tuesday we have our recorded show, and then every Friday we have our Patreon show. So you can listen to 10 or 15 minutes of it for free, and then if you want to hear the whole thing, you got to go to our Patreon. But then if you're part of the Patreon membership, we do live shows in and around the big events as well. So we'll be live during next Tuesday.
So your pod has a YouTube channel?
What's that?
Your pod has a YouTube channel. Your political pod?
Great podcast is a YouTube channel as well. We leverage that for our live shows, but it's unlisted because they get to be Patreon. But you can certainly go there the free show as well on YouTube.
Do you enjoy talking basketball more or politics more?
Oh boy, that's a great question. I think I enjoy talking basketball more because the situation right now with the politics is so ugly and horrible. Whoever you're voting for, it's ugly and terrible. Like, it's just a terrible place that we've gotten to, which could very well be the inevitable result of mixing capitalism and democracy. Like maybe we're always destined to get to this point, but that said, it's like we have an amazing community over there. And if you're part of the Patreon, we have a Discord. And so everybody, every day, all day, we're just chatting and having great conversations and helping each other. So that part is really great. But I got to tell you, it's been rough the last, just this whole time. And even after Trump lost and we thought, okay, maybe we'll get back to normalcy and we'll be able to figure out how to make this country better. He never went away. And so it continued to keep us on our, on edge and anxiety riddled. So good for you for not paying attention, or at least telling me you're not paying attention. Whether or not we believe you or not is up to the viewers and me. But good for you if you can keep that anxiety away from your psyche.
I try and stay in my own lane, Coach Nick.
Yeah.
I know the argument that somebody would say, you got to pay attention to what's going on around you. I get it. I understand that. I understand that vantage point as well.
You have kids. You have a
son. Son. Yep.
You have a daughter. All right. So that's another thing that's interesting because, obviously if you have a daughter and you're a woman in this country, that should be even more important for the point you made because of the rights that they're trying to take away. And so that's another interesting thing, but we don't have to get into that discussion, I suppose. Do we have anything else we want to talk about as we wrap up? Oh, crap. I'm late for my politics podcast recording, but anything, no? Did we cover it?
Yeah, I think we covered everything we wanted to talk about.
Okay. So Bud Stops. I hope that you vote and participate. And I hope that maybe anybody out there that's leaning towards Trump, would just take a second to meditate and think about this and realize that, he's a guy who's going to continue to use corruption to enrich himself off of our country. I think that's certainly a yard too far. But, other than that, he kind of, inspired an insurrection. And so I think that kind of disqualifies him too. You are aware of the January 6th insurrection, right?
I am aware of that.
Now, I was live when that happened, by the way. I was doing a live show by myself. And I think you can still see it. We go find that on January 6th. And you can see me, like, my phone started blowing up. And I think I glanced at it. And you're like, I think I ended the show early because I had to go find out what's going on.
That looked like a crazy movie.
Yeah.
Did they make a movie about that or no?
I mean, they've done like a lot of documentaries. I don't think I've seen a fictional or not.
I'm sure that'll happen eventually.
Yeah, I mean, because especially with the filmmaking, technology we have, you can recreate that in a way that would probably really make you feel like you were there. Which would
how has movie making technology changed?
Well, you could probably do it like you wouldn't need thousands of people now, so that's one thing.
AI.
Well, yeah, or just like character CGI, but you can also do it with like camera movements and stuff like that you probably would have a lot harder challenges back in the past. That would just increase the what the feeling was there, I suppose. I'm trying to think of anything else I would do. I don't know. Anyway, and then every day there's more and more information that comes out about how that was planned. So that would be interesting to see to throw it in there because you might be surprised how that was a big part of the Trump's plan was to have that happen so that they could then try and contest the results. Anyhow, it's all out there. You don't have to listen to me. Don't take my word for it, but it won't take you more than a couple minutes if you look at it, and we'll see. But anyhow, well, thanks, Combo. Good show as always.
Yeah.
We'll be back again on Monday. I think I'm in town. Are you in town?
Yes, sir. I'll be here. Let's make it happen.
All right, let's keep doing it. And great show, great numbers. Thank you to everybody out there for the super chats. Again, it really, really helps us keep this show going and on the lights on. So thank you to everybody there. I love the questions anyway as well, just to interact. And I don't know. Let's wrap it up because I'll tell you now. Don't forget, sports fans, at B-Ball Breakdown, we're not a channel. We're a conversation. You in? Are you in, Combo?